Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Around the County, a production of the Prince George's County Council. I'm Council Chair Todd Turner, your host. Educating our children to successfully compete in a global economy is critical to achieving progress in Prince George's County. Please stay tuned for my Around the County conversation about education with Chief Executive Officer of the Prince George's County School System, Dr. Monica Goldson. Around the County comes your way in just a moment.
You made her college years possible, opening that education savings account when she was little, spearheading campus tours, and deciphering financial aid. If you can ace planning for college, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome to Around the County, a Prince George's County Council production. Take the journey, celebrate our communities, engage with us. We're working together to deliver service to our residents, to build thriving communities, and to make progress in Prince George's County. It's time now for Around the County, service, community, progress, with your host, Council Chair Todd M. Turner.
Hello, and welcome to Around the County, a production of the Prince George's County Council. I'm your host, Council Chair Todd Turner. My special guest for this program is a veteran educator who served our school system for 28 years before her recent appointment as the Chief Executive Officer for the Prince George's County Schools. I'm very pleased to welcome to this edition of Around the County my guest, Dr. Monica Goldson. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, tell me, how does it feel to be our new Chief Executive Officer for the Prince George's County Public Schools?
It's extremely exciting. I'm glad to have the interim removed from my name and now be permanent. But this summer we are prepping for the opening of school on September 3rd. So even though our students and parents are relaxing, we are working extremely hard to make sure that the opening of school goes smoothly.
So I know in your press conference where you were announced by County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, you kind of told us about your history with the public school system. Prince George's County is your home. So for those who don't know who Dr. Monica Goldson is, tell us how you got started and what you've been doing during your time serving the public here in the Prince George's County Public Schools.
Yes, I am a graduate of Potomac High School. After I graduated, I attended Florida A&M University, came back and started as a mathematics teacher at Suitland High School and have had the opportunity to work my way to this position now. I've served as an instructional specialist for mathematics, and that's a person who helps assist secondary teachers in mathematics. I became an assistant principal at 2 high schools, then a principal of 2 high schools, an associate superintendent for high schools, chief of operations, and then deputy superintendent for teaching and learning before getting this role.
So obviously you're well prepared for this role given your history as part of that. So what did each of those positions show you or teach you about the public school system here in Prince George's County, and how are you using that now in your current capacity?
Every role was different, but it provided me an opportunity to get a lens and to look at how the school system truly functions. I think the best role truly was the chief of operations role, because that would have been a non-traditional role. I'm so much focused on what happens in the classroom, the delivery of content and instruction. The operations side allowed me to get to see the food services side, transportation, building services. All of those components are key to making sure that the classroom functions effectively. But all of those experiences contributed to the role that I lead now. And the most important role is that of also being a parent. Having that lens from all perspectives shapes the decisions that I make daily.
And that's important. Obviously, I'm a parent of a graduate of the public school system here in Prince George's County and a current student as well. So obviously I know you have 2 sons, one who's already graduated and one who's currently in school. So how does that perspective inform what you're doing?
Well, my child tells me often his thoughts about decisions I make, mainly on snow days. But it helps to frame a student's perspective. Every time I'm in a school, I do ask students how their educational experience is going, because that's important. I say it every morning and every evening before I go to bed that they have had the best educational experience possible, because it shapes who they are and their contribution back to this amazing county. It's the same thing that I experienced as a student. So his thoughts helped to shape, but ultimately, truly, I really do make decisions based on data and informed decisions, not just his thoughts.
That's good. It's always to hear the actual feedback from the students as part of that, and having one in your house, I'm sure, as I hear, as well as a parent. So, do they get anywhat embarrassed, or do their peers kind of go to them and say, hey, can you go talk to your mom about X, Y, Z?
They do. His phone is typically off the hook on, inclement weather days. But probably the one time he called was the mornings with Monica at the Starbucks. I got a text from my son in the middle of the school day saying, I just saw you. What are you doing at the Starbucks? And so it's those kinds of experiences. But I'm grateful that typically he doesn't. He's just like any of the 134,000 students. He's an average teenager. He's just like anyone else. He comes home, he goes to his room, and he doesn't want to talk to me.
Yes. That's traditional of a teenager, as having one myself. So obviously now in this new leadership role, what can we expect as consumers of the education system, parents, students, particularly heading into the upcoming school year?
So definitely the things that worked last year we'll continue to do. And that's the accountability and transparency components that I really truly focused on. Making sure that our communication continues with our community and our parents and our elected officials. That's extremely key. But what's most important is that what you'll see is that a focus is on our classroom, and that you'll begin to feel a different sense that there's an increase in student achievement. Because really, that's what we're here for every single day. We want to make sure that our kids are prepared so that no matter what they decide to do when they graduate, they have the ability to do that. So this upcoming school year, we're committed to focusing on our teachers. We've made a major investment, thanks to our county council partners, to increase compensation. But that compensation was extremely important because we wanted to make sure we got the best and the brightest in front of our students every day. I've said constantly that we can't just purchase a program if we expect that to improve student achievement. It's teachers who can help to do that.
So, I know you did a lot of outreach in your interim role. Is there an expectation that you'll continue to do that as CEO now?
Yes, I'll continue to do that because I don't want people to think that, now that the interim is removed and the permanent is there, that something will change. It will be just that and more. So we'll continue the listening sessions, which we will start again this October. We did them last year in October. We'll do them again. We'll have listening sessions for our community to come out and really share their concerns, and so that we can begin to make some of those same changes. I just started our Twitter account when this role became official. So I'll keep that communication going, and just had a preliminary conversation with a recommendation to do our TV program similar to what you do now. And so we're continuing to make sure that we can keep our community updated about what happens in our schools.
Great. So tell me what a typical day is for you. I know we're in a recess right now, but in the summer vacation,
typical day right now in the summer looks different than the school day. But in the summertime, actually, we're constantly preparing for school. So even right after I meet and have this program, I'm meeting to talk about transportation and what the bus routes look like and how we can improve our on-time arrival. I had a meeting earlier today about how we can improve our science and technology offerings for the computer science strand. So I spent a lot of time during the summer looking at ways that we can improve the educational experience from the previous school year. And many times I get that from feedback from students and parents and our teachers, our educators. When the school year begins, there's always, I look at each week and make sure that there's time that I spend in our schools. And then I continue those conversations with many community partners on ways that they could help to elevate the school system. I have conversations with our elected officials, such as yourself, on how we can continue to make the educational experience for our kids better.
So how's the reception been, I guess, both in your interim role and now as the permanent CEO? How are people responding to that?
Actually, it's been exceptionally great. I appreciate everyone's commitment to wanting to get it right for kids. I think there's not a person that I have not met that genuinely, truly cares about our children, whether they have them in the school system or not. Typically, I meet people who don't, but just want to make sure that our kids have the best experience possible. I'm doing my very best to get into the community to make sure that people know what we are doing. I think we haven't done a great job of telling our story And so I want to make sure I go out to tell that story. Many times people think, oh, do you all still do vocational education? We do. It's called career and technical education now. But kind of telling those kinds of good stories so that they can know and share it with their neighbors.
Great. So obviously you haven't been a teacher before. Now for the last several years been an administrator. Do you miss being in the classroom in that kind of way?
I do.
Okay.
I do miss being in the classroom, and it's great you brought that up. We just came off of our Summer Leadership Institute, where I have given a challenge to our principals to go back into the classroom. And so this school year, I have asked every principal to go back in and teach a lesson.
Wow.
One, so that we can show our community that they're instructional leaders, so they can understand the experience that our teachers are having. They can connect to student experiences. And what I ask of my principals, I do myself. So I, too, will be returning to a high school mathematics classroom near you.
Okay. Sounds very good. So in the last couple of minutes that we have before our break, tell me a little bit about what you've been able to do over the past year in the interim and how that will kind of precede what you're going to do currently in your permanent role.
Yeah, this past school year we had a focus on 3 main areas, and that was truly compensation, a reduction in class size, and school safety. And that has helped to propel us to where we're moving forward for this upcoming school year. We're grateful for the support from our county council members that we were able to have an approved budget that supports all 3 of those areas. Class size, the reduction at the primary grades, which is grades K to 3. We've talked about for years, but to be able to really fully execute that now, we'll be able to see the reduction in class size at the beginning of this school year. So we're grateful for that. Compensation was big. We've been talking about a longevity salary increase and being able to pay teachers and administrators and all employees, food service workers, bus drivers, for that time that they lost during 2009 to 12.
So the way I see it, it's very interesting, some parallels. Obviously, the county coming, particularly out of 2010, was kind of at a period where we needed to improve our game as part of that. And I kind of see some very similar situations with our school system. I know a lot of people have talked, and being a parent in the school system, about the change that has occurred, particularly in the leadership, and how that has impacted the improvements we have made. But from my perspective, I feel like we're on the cusp of moving forward with you in the leadership, and I think there's a shared vision with the county executive, the county council, our state legislative body as well, the focus now at the state level on funding education. So I think those are a couple of things that we might be able to touch on in our next segment to talk about some of the programs and some of the things that I think we've focused in on as part of that process. So, I'm sure we'll have a continuing great conversation, obviously with our CEO of our public school system. Some of the topics we'll talk about is, I know a big topic is on school construction.
Yes.
You talked about transparency and accountability and the efforts by the council and the county to do some oversight as part of that process, and then talk about some of the academic things, the exciting things that are going on in the school system as well. So,
I'm excited.
All right, great. With that, we'll take a short break, so please stay with us for more of our conversation with Dr. Monica Goldson, Chief Executive Officer of the Prince George's County Public School System. Around the County returns right after this.
If you were born from 1945 to 1965, you'll want to listen to this. People born during these years are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C. But many people living with hepatitis C don't know they're infected. You can live with the disease for decades without having any symptoms or feeling sick. Over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems, including liver cancer. A blood test is the only way to know if you have hepatitis C. Here's the good news. Hepatitis C can be cured. So, if you were born from 1945 to 1965, CDC recommends you get tested for hepatitis C, because you still have a lot to look forward to.
And so today, I am grateful to lead this amazing school district One that I sat in the classroom and sat in a seat and learned from teachers. One where my high school principal said he saw it in me when I didn't see it in myself. And one now where I can represent every single kid and tell them one day this can be you. So thank you.
Welcome back to Around the County, a production of the Prince George's County Council. I'm Council Chair Todd Turner, your host. We are continuing our important conversation about education and our county schools with our school superintendent and CEO, Dr. Monica Goldson. Thank you so much for taking time out to join me again on Around the County. So you were, along with our county executive, a fixture in the legislative body General Assembly session earlier this year talking about education issues, which was a key topic, obviously with the work of the Kerwin Commission,
yes.
Also known as the Commission for Excellence in Education. So talk a little bit about your experience, obviously, in Annapolis and some of the successes that we had with respect to some of the additional funding that we just approved in our county school budget.
Yeah, so our county exec and I spent a lot of time in Annapolis this past session and appreciative of the support that we received from our delegates and senators around education. At the conclusion of this legislative session, we're thankful that we were able to receive $53 million to support our continued education achievement. We're grateful for that, and we were able to also talk about school construction. And we were able to have legislation passed that we will potentially, hopefully, have additional funding to support that legislation around a public-private partnership. Right. The $53 million that we received for student achievement really provides supports across the board. One of the areas was to provide additional compensation for teachers, specifically for teachers, to get a 3% increase. And we're grateful for that. That 3% increase was matched with the 1.5% from Kerwin funding. We're able to get support around community schools, and community schools are schools that are identified by our elected officials having 80% or more free and reduced meals applications. And in those schools, they will have mental health support, wraparound services to support their area of weakness, as well as having a community school coordinator. That coordinator helps to connect them to resources that exist in the county government. And so we're grateful to have supports to pay for that. We also got additional funding for special education, and that means that for this upcoming school year, every teacher who touches a special education student will be trained and make sure that they're equipped with strategies to support the students so that they can be successful.
Great. So obviously the entire school budget that was recently adopted is over $2.1 billion. That's a combination of both state funding, which I think was about 1.2, county funding, which was just about 800,000, and some federal funds as well. So the $53 million was in addition to that.
Correct.
Which I believe what they're calling is the down payment for the blueprint for Maryland. So having reviewed a little bit, and I know the Kerwin Commission came out with its recommendation, and now they're having a follow-up with respect to how to fund the recommendation, which a lot of people say is about $3.8 billion over a 10-year period. How do you think that would impact Prince George's County in the future if they're able to find a formula to be able to pay it? And the one good thing I know is the previous formula that we used was the Thornton Commission, and Dr. Alvin Thornton, who's the chair of our Board of Education, is also a member of that Kerwin Commission working on the formula. So I know we're well represented with somebody who cares deeply about our school system here in Prince George's County. So.
We are, and that's extremely important because Dr. Thornton brings a different perspective sitting at the table. It's important for Prince George's County because even with the down payment for our blueprint for Maryland, we receive the second largest amount of money in the state. Right. And so that formula is going to be key and critical. Because we do have a population that is 60% students on free and reduced meals. And in order to make sure that we create an equitable playing field for all of our students, that formula has to ensure that we do that.
Right. Which will be important. And I guess the question is out there is how we pay for it, which is up to us as both the state legislature and us as the county to be able to, in essence, put the money where our mouths are with respect to education. And I think we've been able to do that. As part of that process, but there is some, I would say, concern that, how are we going to afford this at a local level, given some of the restrictions that we have about raising additional revenue as part of that. But, it's one of those things that if you survey whether you're parents or not parents in the school system, or stakeholders in the school system, that education always one of those top issues as part of the process.
It is, and I feel the momentum now where if there's ever any time to do that, it would be now. I think we all understand the need to put money into education because it determines our future, not only for our students, but our county and us as adults. So I'm hopeful.
Good, good. And so that would bring up one thing. We'll talk about school construction in a second because I know it's a big issue that came out of the General Assembly this year as well. So you talked about transparency and accountability. So what do you say to those folks who may be critical to say, well, listen, we're spending, upwards of 60% of the county's budget on public school education, yet we're not where we want to be as a county. So how do you respond to those kind of questions?
Actually, I'm so glad you brought up, because what we don't do is really share enough with our community about the support and the academic achievement that we provide for our Black and brown students in this district. We are 90% children, we represent 90% children of color, and across the state, we do better for our children of color than anyone does in the state. But because we're compared to other jurisdictions who have a smaller portion of those students in their district, it makes us look as if we haven't had increased student achievement, but we have. Okay. And so this is our opportunity to continue to make sure that people understand that for our own children that live here in the community, we've done well. Do we have more to do? We sure do. Right. We have over 1,000 students who participate in dual enrollment. We've doubled the number of students who have taken our English. For
those who don't know what that is, why don't you
So
explain?
For those who don't know what dual enrollment is, those are students who participate in our regular day program in our schools, but also are taking college credit at our Prince George's Community College or Bowie State. So we've increased the number of students who participate in dual enrollment. We've doubled the number of students who have taken our English language learners assessment and who have now tested out of that program. And so we're making strides. It's just that we have to do a better job of sharing those academic accomplishments.
I mean, the other ones out there that we know about are obviously the Science Academy at Prince George's County, and now we're having a Teacher Academy there. So you're having both high school level classes as well as college level classes in order to provide a profession for those who graduate, and that's one of those success stories that we've talked about but hasn't always gotten out there.
Right. We have students who are graduating with their associate's degree and their high school diploma at the same day, on the same day. Right. And that number is continuing to increase because it's not just at the Academy of Health Sciences. We now have a P-Tech program that allows us to do that, and another program called 3D Scholars, where our students are getting their high school diploma, their associate's degree, and then their undergraduate college degree, all for $10,000. Wow.
So there is opportunity in Prince George's County, I know, and one of the things that we hear as the council is making sure that every child gets that opportunity as part of that process. Just going back on accountability, one of the things that the county council, working with the school system and the school board, was to start doing kind of what we call a continuous business improvement evaluation. It's not really an audit in that kind of way that you would traditionally think of it, but it's talking about how the systems are working as part of that. So we did first one, I think about 2 years ago we completed that. I know we've had some discussions about our next phase of that. So just talk about how you utilize that information in some of the decisions that the school system makes.
So our continuous business improvement plan that we did jointly, and it really focuses on, it focused on the operations of the organization. And that was helpful because what it did was have an external partner come in and really just analyze the function of our organization in comparison to other education agencies and best practices. It's been helpful because what it does is allow us to make progress and changes that need to be made. But more importantly, every time we come to the county council, there's a conversation between our county council members and our administration and the Board of Education about how we're working to improve and what we're doing with the recommendations that came out of that report. And there's an alignment between funds that are provided from the county into how we're using those funds to really move from and actualize those recommendations. So it's key because it helps to show that if we're able to really be effective in our operations, then we're able to save money, which ultimately gets redirected back to the classroom.
Which is something you did when you first got into the interim, was about shifting funds from central office to addressing some of the other needs as part of that. So it is part of that, building that trust, and that's something I've appreciated in your position, both in the interim and prior to that as well, in your other administrative positions, is providing the factual and other basis for us to go out and say this is why we're doing the things that we do. And I think people tend to trust that, not that everyone would, but I think that's a long way, at least from my perspective as a partner with you and as an elected official, because that's what we need to do, to be able to explain why we're using the funds, what we're using them for, and the results as part of that process. So any thoughts about what the next potential improvement review that we'd want to do that you think might be helpful?
Yeah, initially we thought that next review could be around compensation, right. But we actually decided to move faster and do a compensation analysis in order to help to inform our decisions this past school year. Right. And so we were able to do that quickly because we needed it to figure out what to do in terms of the longevity salary increase. So we're open. Okay. What I do know is that I appreciated having the continuous business improvement process. One, we started out saying it's not an audit, so it allowed people to really just relax through the process. But having an external view of a large organization such as our school system, we're the largest employer in Prince George's County. And truly, there needs to be a level of accountability for our taxpayers' dollar.
Gotcha. So the last thing I'll touch on is obviously we were also very successful on the school construction side. Obviously, as you indicated, we got state legislation for Prince George's County to be one of the first, not only in Maryland, but probably first in the country, to evaluate and determine about using what we call either alternative construction financing or public-private partnerships, or P3s, as part of that process. So walk us a little bit through how that process has been moving forward.
So it's called a public-private partnership. Really is having a developer come in and build a certain number of schools. In this case, we're looking at, for the first phase, up to 10 schools in a very short period of time. They would put the money up front to build those schools, and then we would pay them back over a 30-year time period. What's key about that, and in our model, which is different, the first across in the nation, which you stated earlier, is that we've added a maintenance component to it. And that means that over this 30-year time period, after those schools are built, then if something breaks down in the school, that developer is still responsible for making the repair. That's so key because we've had new schools built, and unfortunately, we're now sitting on an $8 billion really backlog in terms of school renovation and maintenance. Right. And so this really helps to make sure that we don't have that kind of situation.
So I know it's exciting, but it's also something we're piloting in Prince George's County. I know we're spending a lot of effort between the county executive, county, and the school system to make sure we get this right. Because as you indicated earlier, while we weren't successful in getting state funds to assist us in this process, if we can prove that this is a viable alternative, that might, again, providing that trust and experience and data to say this is something that we can address all our school issues in the future.
I feel confident that we'll be able to have a great model that we can go back to the state to say we were able to pull it off for just using county funding. And I think that was so important because it shows our commitment to really wanting to invest in our children.
Great. Well, I want to thank you again for joining me as part of today's program for Around the County. And I want to thank again Dr. Monica Goldson, our Chief Executive Officer for our county school system. Dr. Goldson, your solid leadership and service to our students, parents, staff, and communities in Prince George's County, as well as your partnership with us as the County Council, will result in great progress for our county. We are looking forward to a great new school year starting September 3rd. And this has been Around the County, a production of the Prince George's County Council. Remember to connect with us at pgccouncil.us and also on our social media. I'm again Council Chair Todd Turner, and I'll be seeing you soon around the county.
year, millions of Americans use opioids to manage pain, and reliance on opioids has led to the worst drug crisis in American history. That's why the CDC recommends safer alternatives like physical therapy to manage pain. Physical therapists treat pain through movement, hands-on care, and patient education. No warning labels required. Pain is personal, but treating pain takes teamwork. When it comes to your health, you have a choice. Choose more movement and better health. Choose physical therapy.